This is so great. Welcome, everybody. Licensing has always been about identifying valuable intellectual property and matching it with the right partners to bring products to market efficiently. AI can enhance every one of those aspects. AI can analyze market trends and consumer behavior more accurately than any traditional methods, allowing you to identify these high potential brands and character entertainment properties and identify them earlier. It can streamline contracts and contract analysis, management of rights, and reducing all of the manual workload of administrating license agreements. And on the creative side, AI and AI generating tools are already being used for prototypes, marketing assets, and even new product concepts. At the same time, like any modern technological change, AI introduces new considerations and concerns, from data protection to legal issues of AI-generated content and an evolving framework for legal licensing agreements. And we're going to hear today how some are using AI to analyze legal agreements, sometimes for their benefit and other times to their detriment when done improperly. And you're going to hear all of that today, not from me, but from our panel of experts who are already using AI in the licensing business, and they're going to share with you how they're doing it. Actually, let me bring up our panel. David Bourne, the founder and CEO of Born to License. Jimena Duque, Senior VP of Global Client Services from LMCA, and J. Scott Evans, the AI Director and founding principal of US Stobbs. David, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. So I'm David Bourne. I'm owner of Born Licensing and Born to License. And one of the things that I use AI for is to help me on the Born to License podcast, if we have any listeners in the room.
So let's start with the basics and talk about AI in the licensing industry and where AI is creating real value for licensing, not just hype. So David, what is AI and what does AI mean to you?
This is a great question. I still feel like the world of AI is kind of the wild, wild west. I think we're trying to all figure it out, not just the licensing industry, but the world itself. For me, as a business owner, I've told all of my team that we really need to find ways to embrace AI to make us more productive, to make us more efficient. One thing I did want to mention, though, is what AI is not. AI is not a replacement for two fundamental things that drive the licensing industry. The first one is trust, and the second one is relationships. Everybody under this roof, works around trust and relationships. There are people that have been in the licensing industry for decades and decades and have built up those relationships, and they just cannot be replicated through AI. So I feel like that those elements are untouchable in our industry. And as we're talking about all the great things that AI can do for our industry, we need to bear in mind that it won't replace everything.
I love that discussion of trust and relationships, but tell us, how are you personally, how are you and Born to License and Born Licensing using AI in your business?
Yeah, so what I've been doing a lot of with my content, so on the Born to License podcast, I've been working with AI to help me generate scripts, help the recording be better quality. My entire team have also been helping using AI to help generate their content, talk about all the work that we're doing as well. I would say that we're not necessarily going as deep as we would like to be going with AI right now. We're also in a bit of a wait and see phase. So I wouldn't say we're doing anything that's more exciting than what a lot of other people are doing in this room at the moment. But we're watching to see where it's going.
How do you see your AI tools changing your business over the next couple of years?
When I look at the life cycle of a licensing deal, from identifying the right IP to negotiating the agreement to working through the contract to the product development stage to royalty reporting to CMF reports to forecasts, I think that AI tools will help make every part of that much more efficient. Licensing can be a laborious task. There's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of paperwork, and particularly the product development process is what takes the longest amount of time. And I think what the future holds is, as AI tools are adopted and embraced by our industry, they'll really find a way to really streamline that so we can get licenses signed quicker and products to shelves faster.
David, do you find that you're using licensing more in the negotiating the license agreements, identifying the IP, or once the agreement is signed, using it to develop the products and forecast the marketing trends?
What my team has been doing most on the born to license side is using AI to help us find the right IP for our clients. But what we were talking about before is you've got to be very careful with what you're putting into the AI tool, because everybody is signing non-disclosure agreements left, right, and center. Every licensing agreement has non-disclosure language in there, and we're all given sensitive information all the time. I was at the showcases yesterday, and the day before, lots of NDAs being signed. We have to make sure that we're not putting any confidential information, even in the questions that we're putting into ChatGPT or Claude, because that's something that we've agreed that we're not able to do. So that's how we do it on the born to license side. But again, my whole team is instructed, be very careful what you're actually putting onto the system, because once it's out there, it's out there.
How can AI improve, or how are each of you using AI for matchmaking, and how are you using it for deal negotiations?
For the deal making side of things, to be honest, I'm not using AI. Going back to what I said at the start, it's all about relationships in this business, and deal making can be a very personal thing. I think that's something that needs to be done human to human, at least in the short term. Who knows where AI will take us? But I still feel like those deal negotiations are something that needs to happen without AI's involvement.
So without revealing anything confidential, now that we've been warned by Jay Scott, David, can you give us one or two specific examples of where you've used AI and actually used it in practice?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to go back to the podcast that I mentioned, but to be honest, that podcast I do once a week. And 5 years ago, it would have taken hours and hours and hours to do. I decide on the topic based on having a bit of back and forth with AI to see what is trending in our world. It helps me draft the script. It's still very much my tone of voice, but it helps me kind of do the legwork with the script. Once I do the recording, it cleans it up for me and puts it in a really good place, and it reduces it down to about half an hour. So it takes me about half an hour to do a podcast instead of many, many hours that it would have years ago.
I should have just asked him for the questions through AI, and I would have been able to prepare for this much easier. And then David, what are you seeing AI in contracts? When we spoke about this earlier, you had a really interesting perspective about where you see AI in contracts going.
Yeah, when I was asked to be on this panel, I wanted to think about what does the future kind of look like for AI in licensing. And one of the things that I started thinking about was dynamic royalty structures. There's been a little bit of a rumbling of dynamic royalty structures here.
Can you just share what you mean by dynamic royalties?
Absolutely. So let's say a theatrical release is coming out in 24 months' time. The licensor is going and selling that to potential licensees, and the licensees aren't necessarily sure about it. A dynamic royalty structure could actually have a royalty structure in place based on performance. So if it does really, really well, the royalty rate would be a lot higher. If it does poorly, the royalty rate would be a lot lower, and AI essentially would be responsible for calculating that across all of their different licensees.
It's like surge taxi pricing in New York City. What advice do you have for our audience for steps they should be taking now to be starting to prepare or starting to use AI in their licensing businesses?
Well, there's something I wanted to say, more of a word of warning. I don't want to be the negative person on this panel, but I think about what I was like 20 years ago. I entered licensing and I was doing a lot of administrative tasks, a lot of basic functions for the company that are being replaced as we speak. And I think we need to make sure as an industry, and this applies to a lot of other industries as well, is we're not eliminating the entry-level jobs. We're making sure we're allowing newcomers to come into our industry, new blood into our industry, and not replacing them with AI, because we need a future as an industry. Where would I be if I didn't have that opportunity at Haven Licensing in Australia 20 years ago, doing a lot of administrative tasks? I certainly wouldn't have a team of 14 people now bringing innovation to the industry. And I think we just have to be really mindful of that. It's tempting. It's really tempting to say, we're not going to hire this junior. We're just going to have it all scooped up and done through AI. But the truth is that those juniors are the future of our businesses and of our industry, and we need to make sure that we're being really, really mindful of that.
It's so interesting, and I actually saw some of the younger people in the audience acknowledging that. I think it's so hard today for, especially people doing remote, for newcomers to an industry to really learn the industry. And like you said, you learned it by doing the basic tasks and watching the people who you emulate and worked under. So using it as a learning tool, and there's surely a danger of losing that learning tool when the bigger companies are relying on AI. So I've just gotten the 2-minute warning. I want to thank all of you for coming. My name is Stephen Heller. My company is The Brand Liaison. We're a leading licensing agency here on the floor. David Bourne Licensing has a booth here on the floor, and Himana from LMCA. If you have more questions, reach out to any of us or see J. Scott Evans at Stobbs. And thank you all for coming. It was great having you.
Thank you.